some question?
I'm asking on behalf of someone here. As a total beginner, how to practice Buddhism step by step, such as reading books of practice or any other methods, and how to unite the path and wisdom and listening, contemplation and meditation.
Reading books, very good. I think that's... And then receiving teachings, especially before you engage into a serious practice, receiving teachings from different sources, not only settling with one tradition or one lineage. And then as for the practice, as I said, this afternoon we will do maybe a few minutes of shamatha, and I will explain a little bit of shamatha. So that one is probably something practical and doable and really a must for anyone who is aspiring to do long practices.
Rinpoche, it's a question around sort of managing to hold the idea of being a servant to others while at the same time not sort of getting caught up in the expectations of others, and especially as a beginner, sort of how to be skillful, I suppose, on a practical level around managing, others' expectations, but also having that sort of motivation of wanting to serve others or put others before yourself.
Motivation to serve others and
not getting it's hard to explain,
not getting caught up by their expectations.
Their expectations.
Yes,
yeah.
Very difficult. This one, very difficult. But I think bodhisattvas, this is very difficult but very important question, especially for the beginners. This, we call it Mepa Lamje, Chanchu Samba. We are at the stage of practicing motivation, mind training. Okay? Cautious. The chapter is about cautiousness, carefulness, mindfulness is the beginning stage. So the stage here, as we talked about flowers and fruits and all of that yesterday, is really about motivation. So it's really not so much about actual action. So, but that does not mean that when you can do, you should not do. You should only settle with the motivation. Whenever you can, and whatever you can, do a little bit, of course. But mainly you really develop motivation again and again and again. And this is good that you ask, because the next stanza that I was going through, I was kind of course, going quite fast. Where is it? Dagi gegom majena dililu bajemede. Shantratipa used this word a lot. Gom. Gom means getting accustomed to, getting familiarized. Familiarization with the wholesome thought. Never you should despise that thought. Don't ever think that this is just a wishful thinking. This is just mouthing words. I'm not really doing anything. That is one of the big mistakes that we make. Because I guess modern people, we always measure ourselves with actual concrete, visible, tangible success. And they are all illusory. They are not really, what is, if you think really deeply, we never know. Even giving glass of water to someone who is thirsty, we don't know whether it's really helping or whether you are causing a harm or not. It could kill this person because of that water you are giving. If we think that way, then it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. You can build a hospital for so many people, free of charge. Sure, but wow, the ego, the pride, one's own goal-oriented sentiment, all this could invade you. And then hold the bodhisattva path. Yes, you can be the greatest philanthropist, but maybe the bodhisattva path is gone. So for the bodhisattva path, I would say, even if there is a temptation to really go out there and do something, and actually there is even an access and means and time, I would almost suggest those of you who are very new to really sit down and actually do more of the contemplation and more of the genuine building the motivation, getting familiarization. Because once you do that, you will become the most generous automatically. There will be no feeling tiredness and exhaustion. I think that this has actually caused even a bit of a, complaint from people. Oh, the Mahayana Buddhism, all they do is talk. They never build hospitals and, stuff like that, like Mother Teresa, I will tell you, a yogi in Bhutan or any Himalayan country, in Himalayan caves, those who are practicing bodhicitta, any yogi, a good yogi, if you ask them, if you give them a chance to build really so many hospitals for poor people, that versus for them to sit inside their cave and meditate upon, may all sentient beings be happy, may they be free from suffering, more likely they will choose the second one. If they are a good yogi. If they are slightly mixed, sort of spiritual materialists, bit of a fame, all of that, then they might choose the second. This is possible. Now, once you go beyond that, yes, give them a job of Kremlin, what the president, the biggest guy in Kremlin, they will gladly take it. Not only they will take it, they might rob out from you. They might really, try to get that job by all means, at all cost. But then you are in a different stage. For us, and we should not think the beginner stage is such a pathetic stage. It is the most beautiful stage. This is where all the fun is, actually. And it's very cheap to think about these things. And it's very profitable. It's really profitable. And it's already creating a lot of harmony in the world. Just you not being there. I was reading, I just had a leadership training in Nepal, and there's Ted Turner, is it? It's believed that on his desk plaque, it says lead, follow, or get out of the way. Getting out of the way is very good. Many times, it's a very, very, very profound, skillful means. It will benefit yourself, it will benefit lots of others to get out of the way. Stay out of the trouble. Okay? Yes?
What exactly happens when we die? I mean, either at the moment of death or while we are in the process of dying, what happens to this wish for enlightenment or our 5 aggregates or even whatever wisdom and method, the knowledge of all these things we have accumulated in the life?
Okay, the very big question. First, I will try to answer you within this context, Mahayana. Okay, and it's actually within this very stanza. As we familiarize with this thought of bodhicitta, in other words, familiarize with the calmness, kindness, again and again. What does that mean? That means the ratio of only thinking about you and your surrounding is getting less and less. What is it that is making us so afraid of death? Because we think that I will lose everything. The training of this familiarization of the bodhicitta again and again has made that I much more hollow. So the fear of losing, me losing this and that, is much less. You are very calm. Okay? You are very calm, under control. But I can tell you so many things. Since I have myself experienced, but I have. This is one, in the, I forget how old I am. Past few years, about 5 or 6 years, so many people I know are dying and dead. Every time that happens, it's telling me I have been living for long. Because there are so many people dying, my age, younger than me too. And I have noticed one thing, those who have done a bit of a practice, like a shamatha, vipassana, and even those who have a little bit of information. I know one person, he didn't really practice that much, but he's always in the teaching. So meaning he has some information. The way he died, I have to say it was not ordinary. That information is an arm. That information helped. Of course, I've also witnessed practitioners who died, and they did it really impressive. Actually, I should confess that I have a hidden fear that when I die, I may not be as calm as them, and that would be a disgrace to Buddhism. His students actually died much better than him. He was scratching everywhere. Now with all the, YouTube and all the social network, I'm so afraid somebody is going to take a photo of me scratching everywhere and holding on to things. But those guys, they did so well. And I'm not even talking about Bhutanese or Tibetan. Those who are supposedly quite used to these things. I'm talking about actually like Australians, Canadians, Chinese. Very impressive. Gave me confidence for the value of the Dharma. Okay, Now, a little bit more exceptional answer for you. According to the Tantrayana, when you die, your mind becomes more independent. Right now, whenever your mind interacts to the world, you have to go through interpreters. Eyes, ear, nose, body, tongue, you know. You have to go through. So they also, they interpret and they misinterpret and they do. So it's a little bit of, so there's no direct connection. So by the time the information gets back to your mind, it's very diluted and it's very washed down and you only get 0.5% probably. But when you die, your mind is becoming more and more naked. And when you are dead, that is the separation between the interpreter, the sixth interpreter, and your mind. So you have a direct experience with the object. And this is new to you. For instance, your eyes sees this tent. Your mind is looking at this tent and eye is interpreting. When you are dead, when you look at this tent, it's billion times more red and more yellow. It's billion times more square. I'm just giving you some example, that's all. Everything is a different angle. And that, for those who are not accustomed to, those who are not familiarized, those who are not familiar with the power of the mind, could be very scary. And when we are scared, the first thing we try to find is a wall to put our back, and then a hole to hide, or a handle to hold, or closet to hide, stuff like that. And you will rush. Any handle will do, any door will do, any kind of even remotely looking like a shelter will do. And if you jump into that, then you will find yourself in one of so-called 6 realms. And for a Buddhist, especially for a practitioner, to finding a hideout is not the aim. In fact, to not hide, to be naked and remain naked, but with control, is the aim. And that, briefly, I'm telling you, extracting from the, I think popularly known as Tibetan Book of Dying, Death, Bardo. Okay.
Rinpoche, my question is on the rituals and praying and discipline. You said all these things will lead you to enlightenment. Can you, you were explaining something like washing your hands in a certain way. How all these things will, can you give me an example how this will actually lead you to...
If it is combined with the wisdom. That's what I've been talking whole morning, remember? Combining the relative truth and ultimate, combining wisdom and method. This is method. If there's no wisdom, they won't. They're just, they will just create more constipation. They will create segregation. They will cost you if it is combined with the wisdom. Then they are perfect, they are really good. or even in offering an incense. The art of offering. You remember tea ceremony I was talking yesterday? The incense. The Indians, they're so good at this. The ritual, my goodness, the king of rituals, Indians. The bells, the chaos they create. And they're so beautiful. The incense, all that. And then apply the wisdom. What is incense? It's an illusion. It's just a concept. At least that much. There is no such thing as good incense, bad incense. It's just my projection. Applying that wisdom. Like that. You cannot seriously be thinking that we offer Buddha the bath because, he smells. You cannot seriously be thinking that we make offerings of food because by now he should be hungry. It's all mind training. It's all mind training. And as Professor Divakar was pointing out yesterday, the very fact that me saying you can visualize a flower from Mount Machu Picchu right now, this very moment, and offer that to the Buddha can create merit. I am basically talking about wisdom. Because from the wisdom's point of view, flower that is in my present, which is my projection, and the flower from Machu Picchu, which is also my projection, because they are equally a projection, equally you can accumulate merit. There's so many examples, so many. Water, same thing. Why when you go to the temples, there's so many water offerings? Because you think that the water can be offering. And water can be sometimes an offering, sometimes it can be a washing water, sometimes when it's in the, wherever it is, it changes its value. When it's in the toilet, it's dirty. The same water. It's all mind training. So getting accustomed to, so I'll just go through the stanza just a little bit. This is fairly easy. To getting accustomed with virtuous thoughts and actions. If we don't do that, then we will be deceiving ourselves. There's no grander ignorance than that. We know this already, but even after knowing this, if we are not diligent and not apply the Bodhisattva Yana path, when the death comes, we will regret. And the regret is not going to lead us anywhere. The karmic consequences we alone will have to go through. Now that we know the benefit of the bodhicitta, even after this knowledge, if we don't apply, then even after all this knowledge, if you don't apply this method, then it is like we are under a spell of magic or a voodoo, or as if we have become mindless. What kind of enemy? What kind of evil thing exists in our heart? This evil thing that is making us not engage in the Bodhisattva path. the path of wisdom and method, path of kindness, path of thoughtfulness. My enemy, like anger, craving, they don't have feet and hand. They are actually not necessarily courageous and sneaky, or they are not necessarily courageous and clever. But somehow they have managed to make me their slave. And they have now comfortably dwelling in my mind. And they have harmed me at their leisure. Yet, I'm not even angry with them. I'm not angry with my anger. What kind of patience is that? This kind of patience is disgrace. Even all the gods and asuras, if they gang up on me, they can't really take me to the hell realm. But this anger, this desire, this ignorance, they can instantly lead me to the hell. All the ordinary enemies, they can't harm me for this long. Probably they can harm me for a year or 2 years or a decade or a lifetime. But this enemy of mine that is dwelling in my heart has harmed me from the beginningless time. My enemies, ordinary enemies, if I talk to them, if I give them presents, if I try to, soothe them, if I try to have a dialogue with them, then in return they could also change their mind and be nice to me. But this enemy of mine, emotion, if I try to talk to them and be nice to them, actually they end up harming me more. Such kind of enemy that is dwelling in my heart for all this time, those who gives me all this, those who are tormenting me at all times in many different ways, those who have built a fort in my heart, since they are now comfortably dwelling in my heart, how can I feel ease and sleep peacefully? If a butcher held guardians, if they dwell near me, how can I feel at ease and stay comfortably and without caution? See, this is a chapter of caution, of carefulness. So a bodhisattva must think that until I manage to destroy my sworn enemy, the emotion, I shall not give up. In the ordinary life, when we encounter small hindrance or enemy, until we manage to take revenge or destroy this enemy, we lose our sleep. When we go to the battles, the ordinary battles, we don't think twice, but carry weapons and forsake all the, we go through all the pain and suffering of the battle. And until we obtain the victory, we don't even return. In the battle, at times, we get wounded. And when we return, we show off the scar. So when a bodhisattva dwells in the samsara and get wounded by the challenges, instead of brooding, we shall consider this as a cause of confidence and encouragement. Okay, here I will stop again, let you ask questions.
Rinpoche, in answer to the previous question, when we die, you mentioned that we separate our consciousness or whatever that is. So isn't that the self that we are talking about? If it is not the self, what it is?
Yeah, it is self, but doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that it truly exists. It's like a rainbow.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, Rinpoche, my question is related to a discussion which we just had some time ago. Social activists or those who are actually fighting with the problems, very down-to-earth problems, day-to-day problems, they always have this complaint that spiritual teachers or spiritual teachings, now it may be any spiritual teaching, but they say that it is something which in a way takes away the spirit of fighting the evil or spirit of struggling with the problems, and rather they sort of treat it as it's more like a spiritual intoxication. And the people who are in this kind of state, they either sort of look at these problems as very insignificant, or their tendency is basically to withdraw from it, and they are in their own shells. So they really don't want to get involved with these issues. And actually the thing is, now since we are talking about this bodhicitta and the spirit of helping everyone at one hand, and at the same time it's more like more intellectual, more I should say, like we are using lots of imagery and so on. But as I said, maybe as a yogi would not prefer to go and sort of do the actual work, but would prefer to go and sit in the cave and do the meditation. Now, isn't there kind of a contradiction or paradox? Can't there be a way, a beautiful middle way, where a person is equally spiritual and then equally he is active in solving this day-to-day problems? Because this is what basically hurting us in the day-to-day life.
Oh yes, definitely. This is why I was saying initially, I was stressing the word initially. Beginner bodhisattvas, their path is what we call mepe chupisa. It means the bhumi of motivation, bhumi of where you really develop the motivation, that wish aspiration again and again. It's the biggest preparation. Of course, as you get better and better, you try to... Okay, I'll give you one example. For instance, like Bodhisattvas is supposed to, give, like a generosity is a very big thing. But Buddha himself prohibited those Bodhisattvas who are not on the first bhumi level to give their own flesh, because it could break down the Bodhisattva. Because, it's difficult to help people. It's really difficult. You have to really nurture that indestructible, like strength to help endlessly to the infinite numbers of sentient beings. That's difficult. Because even helping one person, again, day after day, day after day, and then this person becoming more and more impossible and more incooperative, can be very tiring. So, I think it's a bit like, when you fly in the plane, the air hostesses, they always tell you, in case of an emergency, you should, put on gas mask, oxygen mask, and first you have to put it on yourself and then put it on others. It's a bit like that. For the initial stage, I think we have to develop that motivation. I think that motivation, developing that motivation, what it does is it really pokes a hole in this mind habit of self-cherishing and only thinking about the self. If a young bodhisattva immediately enters to a really tangible, concrete, philanthropic activity, it's little dangerous, because that can boost the habit of the ego, habit of being a great philanthropist. And there is actually quite a lot of example of that. I grew up with my teachers warning, even though when there was a clear chance for me to do things, he will not stop me to do whatever whatever it is, like a voluntary work in Africa or whatever. He won't. But the tone is, if I tell him, oh, I could do that, and then maybe a few days later I said, oh, I want to go to, Taktsang cave and do a 7-day bodhicitta retreat. Oh, he was like, yes, it's really good. You must do this. Blah, 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 all of that. So the tone is always a bit like that. There's always that tone. And in my own experience, I have seen people trying to, that sudden inspiration to become a great activist. And then they do that, and then facing obstacle and endurance, patience, really difficult, isn't it? Very few people, like Mahatma Gandhi, very few people. After a while, either you get discouraged, which is much better. Worse is you get corrupted. That's much worse. You become very righteous, you become very moralistic, puritanical, and you look at others as like how the like a vegetarian. It's great. Everybody must become vegetarian because it really harms beings. But vegetarian, when they look at non-vegetarian, at times there's a certain tone and, mood. And It's something like that. It's like, it's a little touchy point, this one, all this. Okay?
Rinpoche, you were talking about emotions being our enemies. At a very practical level, when you are in a grip of this fear of death and insecurity, which is partially also motivating you for your spiritual search, when you are in the midst of that emotion and the force is very strong, it's almost like it blinds you at that moment. So is it possible to practice compassion at that particular moment? Because right now I'm in a much calmer state. I can think about it, I can feel it. But when I am in that war zone,
Yes.
If yes, then how?
This is why the constant, continuous, it's be like sharpening the knife. You don't need to sharpen the knife every day, all the time. You sharpen the knife and then you cut things. So that consistency in getting even right now. This is why he was talking about the precious human body. While we are able, while we are, as you said, sober, calm, we should get used to this every day, few minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. Yeah? Then when the condition comes, you apply. In fact, your question is quite big because there's many pith instructions for that. Let's say I'm coaching you. I would suggest you do 10-20 minutes of meditation right now. And then you develop this love for the taste of meditation. Because it's nice, it's blissful, it could even make you high. But then I would say, okay, now go to this and that market. Or work with some people who I know is pain in the neck. And apply your mindfulness. This will sharpen your mindfulness even more. There's many techniques like that. Okay? Working with somebody who is pain in the neck is still okay, not so bad. Though even more challenging is one day you win a lottery. Good news is much more challenging than the bad news, Then at that time to apply the mindfulness, much more difficult. So there's many technique. If you keep on doing that while you are sober, while you are able, when the death or something like this kind of unimaginable shock happens, actually there won't be any shock. You are prepared. If, let's say, you are not prepared, then what is the option? If you have merit, you might encounter someone like Tilopa at your deathbed and do something strange. He might ask you, let's go for dance or something like that. And then you will die. And then I don't know. But the shortage of Tilopa, reality is there, so prayers by yourself and also prayers by those who loves you and those who cares for you. That's about the last resort you have. And if you do have somebody doing prayers for you, that alone shows you have a merit. So, using that merit as a bridge we hope that in your next life, you can pick up. You know, for the trained Buddhist mind, it's a bit like this. If you can't do this today, you will do it tomorrow, right? It's a bit like that. Okay, this life, if you are not, okay, you can do it next life. So that's how the trained Buddhist people think. I know for ordinary people that's like not possible. But trained yogis, for them, they don't see any difference between tomorrow and next life. They don't see.
Before the break, there was a question, is Buddha nature or Tathagata Garbha part of self? And I think you said no to start with. So, and then all these questions about death and mind separating from the body and so on. So I just want to clear my confusion, because if we say that self doesn't really exist because it is the five aggregates which get together and the imputation by mind, labeling, functionality and so on, then the fifth aggregate is consciousness. And my understanding always was that the most very, very subtle level of consciousness, the bottommost we can say, is the Tathagata Garbha Buddha nature. And that you have either the 8th level model of consciousness or the 9th level model. And if you look at the 8th level, then that is embedded in the 8th alaya consciousness.
Yes.
And that's what separates, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Now, if this is part of the aggregate which makes the self, then the answer should be yes. It is part of self. That illusory self, that not inherently existing self, no doubt. And then that would also be marked by emptiness. Wouldn't that be the Madhyamika position Shantideva would take?
Wouldn't which be?
I beg your pardon?
You said, wouldn't that be?
Wouldn't Tathagata Garbha, embedded in the 8th level of consciousness, which is part of the 5 aggregates...
Okay,
also
yeah. As long as it's not truly existent,
not
yes.
truly existing, no.
Okay, yeah.
Marked by emptiness.
Sure. Yeah. Marked by emptiness, no problem.
At that separating, driven by those karmic energies of the alaya, to the next rebirth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course. Otherwise, you accumulate all the merit this life, and someone else gets the benefit in the next life. That would be depressing. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more question? Yes.
Rinpoche, I have a more practice question. When you do, for example, the just sitting practice or so, like, for example, half an hour a day, and then it seems like that it is more easy than, for example, to do like half an hour of Tonglen, because sometimes it feels like your mind uses the practice of Tonglen to stick on something, because your mind has a catch-up, can play with your thoughts and games. So my question is how you can really then practice it without that your mind basically betrays you, or uses this technique to just, like with the example of yesterday with the horse bump, to even plump more down, which shouldn't be the case, because the practice should be important, or at least should feel more.
Are you asking, is the post meditation important?
Well, for me, it's like when you do, for example, the Tonglen, it feels just like your mind uses it to just play, to think again and run around. And
yeah, most of the method at the moment is very much like that. But it does feel like sticking, like a cow shit. But there are hidden machines that are designed to skid. You understand? It will make you feel that it stays, because usually staying is what you like. So we let you think that. But there are hidden agendas inside these methods. They're designed like Tonglen. Okay? You breathe in, breathe out. There's all this abiding quality. But there's something very strange. Exchanging self and other, that is that hidden agenda to skid.
Yeah, Rinpoche, this is derived from the teachings that have been received thus far. With the realizations that appearance and emptiness are non-dual and inseparable. Second, pure perception of utter perfection in everything that is around us. And three, purer the mind, purer the perception. So with this as the base, the question is, in a realized being and yet to be realized being, what is the connection between perception and thought? How does each one of them connect perception with arising thought, feeling and emotion? Thank you.
Realized beings, when they interact with the perception, there's no subject and object distinctions. That's why there is skidding. Yet to be realized beings? Oh, why they are yet to be realized? Because they have the distinctions of subject and object. The subject and object always breeds the dualism. And dualism is the problem here. So yes, there's a difference, big difference. Mainly, no subject and object or subject and object. Okay?
What is a wholesome deed?
Okay. Wholesome deed. Very good question. If for a Buddhist, for a Mahayana, or generally Buddhism, a wholesome deed is not necessarily a morally wholesome. Okay? Wholesome deed is measured by how much the act brings you closer to the truth. If it is not, then it is not. Even the traditional, stereotype wholesome deeds such as offering flower, if you do it with the ego, pride, jealousy, show off, whatever, it takes you further from the truth. So that's not a wholesome deed. This probably is also, I don't know about many of the Hindu philosophies, but this, I have a feeling that this may be one of the subtle differences between Buddhism and the rest of the other Indian thinking. Very important, the motivation. The action is secondary. And motivation is important. Motivation, and the highest motivation is when it is accompanied by the wisdom of non-duality. That is what makes the motivation perfect. So, how do we, people like me, very beginning, me, some of you here, how do we begin with this perfect motivation? We then fabricate, may all sentient beings be happy. Okay, happy, may they be happy. All that is the right motivation, but the wisdom part is the all. Because it's already breaking the concept of limit. It's not like, may my village be happy, may my child be happy. We are including everyone. It's because we are not really managing to include everyone. That's why we are not understanding this properly. You should try, really. You should try to include everyone and then see. One day you try offering an incense and then think, may all, and this all includes Donald Rumsfeld, Gandhi, Modi, Suresh, everyone you disapprove and approve. It will really give you a very different taste. Because you will then realize that there is that hidden strainer mind. Oh, Donald Rumsfeld, he doesn't deserve in this, Or, something like this. You will realize that. But when you really contemplate on that, the distinctions of who we like and who we don't like slowly, slowly diminish. And then you are getting closer to the wisdom. Okay. I'm going to explain a little bit. I will read the rest of the chapter this afternoon. This afternoon will be short. Only about 1 hour, from 3 to 4. We will mostly, and part of that we will do shamatha. Because afternoon is afternoon, after lunch, probably we will be a little bit tired and all that. So I'm going to explain a little bit about shamatha now. And we can do the actual shamatha later. Shamatha, purely shamatha is, the aim of the shamatha is to make your mind malleable, workable, mendable, elastic-like. Okay? I will try not to talk too much details because it's confusing. That's the aim. Right now our mind is rigid. For instance, our mind is not under our control. If you are angry with somebody, let's say, if you have lost your temper at somebody, and you cannot really time it. Okay, 5 more seconds, I will have a temper. 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. You can't do that. It shows your mind is not malleable. And similarly, I can't ask you, okay, everyone get jealous. Or, okay, everyone get angry. Can't really do it. You need a little bit of cause and condition. You can't just switch it on. Not malleable. So mind ends up always doing whatever it wants, and we just follow. So that to make the mind malleable, we do shamatha. The technique of the shamatha essentially is a trick. Like all the Buddhist methods, it's a trick, basically. I always call it placebo. It's a trick. Very necessary trick. What shamatha tells you is you are supposed to choose an object, such as a very beautiful flower or somebody's ear or, I don't know, something, whatever. Traditionally, it's your air that you breathe in and out. or a nostril or anything, really. You choose that object. Okay, what is the trick? The trick is you're supposed to concentrate only to that object. Okay, that's the rule. Trick. Rule. Rule is a trick, right? It's a trick. You got it? You're supposed to only think of that. The moment you do it, you realize you will think of the bread that you ate this morning. You will hear the car noise. You will feel itchy somewhere. I don't know, moment you are supposed to think of that particular thing, instead of doing that, you will do the opposite. Okay? That's what you will do. And then, okay, so that's, okay? So, now, if you come back to me and say, I can't do shamatha. Why? Because I just can't concentrate. The moment I think of whatever you asked me to think, I couldn't. My mind is everywhere. Now, you deserve a medal. This is your first experience. Very good. But if you come, I said, oh, that was so good. I was calm, blissed out. Then I will be worrying. Purpose of shamatha is lost. Then you belong to Aman Resort meditation department. You should go there. You are not really interested in liberation. As a side effect, yes, I accept you could feel calm, clear, but purpose is to make your mind malleable. To make your mind malleable, you have to first realize you are distracted all the time. Okay, next few years, if you want to be seriously practicing the shamatha, next few years, if you keep on thinking, more you meditate, more you are distracted. If you keep on feeling frustrated, it's good. It's a good sign. It means you are improving all the time. Along the way, you feel you are getting calm and blissed out. I would worry. I would really worry. I would really tempt to send you to work somewhere, I don't know, some fast food restaurant or something. There's a side track. So this, okay? And then on top of that, there's a actual technique involves a little bit of a discipline. As always, whatever we do requires a bit of a discipline, which I will explain just before the meditation. Okay?